whatever their genre. And second, the idea that the imagination is the superpower that writers employ to bring their stories to actuality, using the various elements of craft associated with the genres practiced by our writers. For the students in the course, the semester was a time of deep thought regarding the journey they've had as writers so far, and the journey ahead for themselves and their art. Each week, the writers in the course submitted new work and revised work, poems, essays, excerpts from novels, and each week we engaged in rich conversations about the aesthetic and the ethical energies gathered in each piece of writing. Week after week, I was moved by the powerful voices that I encountered in each student's writing. Each voice was a reminder of why we make art and why we seek out art, to complicate our understanding of human nature, to recover and honor what has been lost, to speak truth to power, and also to give pleasure. Our first presenter this afternoon is Sarah Lynn Seabreeze. Sarah Lynn is a fifth year, double majoring in English, writing, and religion. She is involved in the Center for Diversity, Justice, and Sustainability. She has been a guest editor for Saxifrage for 3 years. After graduating, and this is me quoting Sarah Lynn directly, the witch will transform her back into a toad, and she will return to the forest to share all she has learned with the woodland creatures, which is to say that she's going to take a gap year after graduation. Let's welcome Sarah Lynn Seabreeze.
Thank you all for coming. I see so many faces from my GCal, so I'm so happy that you all were able to come. Writing is my voice, literally. I used to have a speech impediment. I had to train my mouth how to hold itself. I would pronounce as wha, and I could not figure out the TH sound, substituting it with the F sound. I went to speech therapy, or as little me would say, speech therapy. Not being able to talk was embarrassing and frustrating. When I would talk to my classmates, they would ignore me. When I talked to adults, they would politely look down at me encouragingly, before then glancing up to my mom and asking in a low voice, "What did she say?" As if I couldn't hear them. My mom would then translate my gibberish. But the written word has no speech impediment. The written word allowed me to communicate without the extra thought on when or when not to arch my tongue or extend it to make the proper sound. I could simply write. In 2011, I wrote my first story. My teacher gave us the prompt. You hear a noise coming from your backyard. You will go outside to investigate and find. This truly sparked my imagination. My story detailed a thunderous crash, followed by my golden retriever puppy barking. There's all this overturned dirt that we both dig at, human hands next to yellow furry paws, until a magical treasure chest is revealed. And then I ran out of room. So I rushed the ending with lots of glowing rainbows that we flew away on. If only I had one extra page. I still have this wide-ruled sheet of paper framed in my apartment. It reminds me of where I came from and reminds me of the joy I experienced from imagining this scenario and the rush of putting pencil to paper. When I arrived here at PLU, I had zero intention of studying English. I had no plan to become a creative writing major. I was focused solely on religion. That was until a little birdie named Jim Albrick encouraged me to take a creative writing class. He pointed out that studying writing would help with my goal of becoming a pastor. As an English major, literature or writing, it would help me communicate effectively and become a better storyteller, all qualities of a good pastor. And since I was a pandemic student, I had a plus year to fill, a buy 4, get 1 free deal. So why not add an extra major? So I took English 227 with Professor Rick Barrett. I loved it. I was thinking creatively in a way I had forgotten, in a way that the younger girl writing adventure stories about her and her dog loved. Writing creatively, again, felt as though I was unleashing my inner child, letting her tell all the stories that have been accumulating in her brain. I found my home in the fiction genre. We are taught to write what you know. This adds a layer of confidence and certainty to your writing. I put this phrase into practice in my intermediate fiction class a couple years ago. For years, I had this customer named Lori. I work at a cupcake bakery, a cafe, and every morning she would come in. She was an older woman, early 80s. She came in 8 o'clock when I unlocked the doors, which was a little annoying, but it was fine. And we had the same banter scripted. Lori's husband would say, "What a beautiful morning in the Pacific Northwest," and I would say, "Right you are." And then I would make her decaf, non-fat, sugar-free vanilla latte every morning and warm up her double chocolate muffin. And I thought their morning dates were really sweet. Turns out Lori had dementia. And then I found out that they were divorced. And then I found out that Lori didn't remember the divorce. So every day he would drive out to her home, pick her up for their coffee date, and act like they were still married. And it wasn't so sweet anymore. Write what you know. So, this customer with her dementia and her ex-husband, who she thought was still her husband, became the inspiration for my writing. I wrote a short fiction piece about an elderly woman with dementia who thinks she's married to her husband, Tom, but doesn't remember that she left him for her female best friend, a lesbian with dementia who forgets she's a lesbian. And I picked up this fiction piece again for my capstone project. It plays with my questions on identity and what part of identity lives in memory, if any. So I'm now going to do a little short reading. My piece is called Decaf, and it opens with Ardella, our elderly female character, waking up to find her husband not next to her. My eyes open to darkness. The street lights illuminate the sheer curtains that hang in front of the window. I glance at the clock. Its glowing, cramped arms telling me that it's 5:30 on the dot. I do not need an alarm clock to wake me up this early. I am a mother. I know that. Motherhood is set deeply in my bones, etched into the calcium and collagen, the very frame of my being. My daughter was a morning bird. She loved mornings and watching the sky gradually get lighter as the sun rises behind the ever-present blanket of clouds. My daughter loved nights too. Honestly, she just didn't like to sleep. She never slept as a baby, and I thought she would grow out of it, as many kids do. But even as a young girl, she simply refused. I had to bring it up to the pediatrician. "Does she exercise throughout the day?" he asked. His face is a blur, faded to memory, but the walls of the examination room were bright and colorful. We were in a jungle-themed room, a hand-painted mural of primates with grinning, stubby teeth, holding yellow bananas, hanging from draping vines. My daughter loved them. I felt watched by their blank, dim eyes. Yes, she's a very active child. She plays at school during recess, tag, and kickball, that sort of thing. And then her father takes her on walks when I make dinner in the evenings, I said. "How long is the walk?" the blur asked. He had the awful habit of clicking his pen absent-mindedly. Sharp clicks descant over his questions. "Oh, honey, how long would you say your walks with Daddy are? A couple laps around the neighborhood?" My daughter doesn't respond. She rubs her chubby fingers across the thickly painted monkeys. She loved textures. She hated many. She hated the tags on her shirts and pants, calling it pointy and sharp. She hated fleece, calling it too hot, but she loved Sherpa, calling it fuzzy-wuzzy. "Well, maybe try having your husband play games with her on this walk. Sports can really tire an energetic kid out." Click, click, click. Sure, I will ask. Click. A scribble to draw a line under the sleep issue. I did ask Tom to tire her out. Games were played. My daughter still refused to sleep. She stayed up late and woke up early. So I wake up at 5:30, decades later. It's not like being trained to wake up before the sun is all that bad. I like how quiet the house is in the morning. Not even Tom's snores penetrate the early morning stillness. A gentle breeze from the cracked window lifts the curtains in a way poets could write about. There's a coolness to mornings that might keep some in bed, but I like it. I turn my head to check on my husband, Tom. I have this fear that his lack of snores means that he's no longer breathing. Sleep apnea. I read about it in a magazine. In one of those interviews with a wife who cared so well for her husband that it saved his life. Turns out the glossy figure smiling up from the page thought her husband's snoring pattern was unusual. He would snore, snore, stop, make an odd choking sound, and then continue to snore. She had him go to the word escapes me, but the doctor who treats sleep disorders, the sleep disorder doctor. They did a study on her husband, and turns out he had sleep apnea. He got a fancy CPAP machine to keep him breathing, and he has slept well ever since. It was a lesson to trust in a wife's intuition for the husband's, and it was a lesson to pay special attention to your husbands for the wives. Tom never did go to the sleep disorder doctor. I showed him the article with the pretty wife with the perfect white teeth. I read him the warning signs of what could happen if he did have an untreated sleeping disorder. But Tom never went to the doctor. He liked to do his own thing. So I have this fear. A fear that Tom stops breathing in the night, choking on his snores, and doesn't start breathing again. My stiff neck argues at my movement. My eyes search for his figure in the dark room. The dark swirls over the smooth bedsheet, refusing to fill in his form. Tom, I whisper, expecting his figure to appear and stir at my words. Lately, I would be staring at a thing I'm looking at and not see it. My toothbrush, my fork, my television remote. I would look, and then my daughter would pull it from thin air in front of me. She wasn't here to pull back the quilt and reveal Tom. I find my arm, gingerly holding my elbow as I reach to pat the space in the bed next to me. My hands' swollen joints glide through the air, resting on its undisturbed surface. Tom wasn't here. Pee. I need to pee. Alexa, turn on the light, I say loudly, whispering no longer necessary since Tom had already gotten up for the day. Okay, replies the clear robotic voice. The lamp next to my bed blinks to life. The lamp illumination brings certainty to what I know, that Tom isn't here. My head hurts, a tugging sensation around my brain. Where is Tom? Why would he get up before me? I used to trick him into thinking I was beautiful in the early days of our marriage. I would join him in bed, wearing my makeup. I'd watch him as he fell asleep and began to snore. At the first snore, I would gently get out of the bed, slipping from the satin sheets. I would rush to the bathroom and take off my makeup and apply whatever concoction the queer man at Macy's sold me. All sorts of promises. Removes fine lines, the appearance of fine lines, that is. Wake up without any of sleep's puffiness, especially around your eye area. Your eye bags are quite protruding. Do you know that? Do you sleep well? Here's a cream to use in the morning. Dab it under your eyes with your ring finger. That is the weakest finger, so gently apply it. Your under eye skin is delicate. I'd apply the creams, roll up my hair, and go back to bed. And motherhood trained me to wake up early, whereas fatherhood allowed Tom to sleep in. I would apply my makeup, a routine so efficient it took less than 5 minutes. Tom must have thought I was the most beautiful wife of them all. Alexa, Call Tom, I ask, my concern growing. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding that contact. Who would you like to call? My husband, Tom. Please, Alexa, I don't know where he has gone. I watch the blue LED light rotate as Alexa thinks. I have no clue how she works. My daughter set her up for me and tried to explain it. I remember her back turned to me as she connected the device to the lamp, or rather to the light bulb. She called it a smart light bulb, that the light bulb was connected wirelessly to the gray globe that contained Alexa. She can turn the light on for you, you can ask her to call me, or Nita even, my daughter said. So she listens to me, I asked. I felt watched. No, Mom, she's only activated by the word Alexa. She isn't listening, she said. But she is. She's listening for me to say Alexa. It's not like that, Mom. She's a friend. She's here to help you. You know how hard it is for you to turn the knob on your lamp, what with your arthritis and all. This is going to help you. I nodded, looking down at my swollen hands. They were old. They didn't feel like mine. There was a life lived in these hands. I remember them slender, long, delicate, easy to move across the frets of my guitar or the keys of a piano. These were the hands of a stranger. These are not my hands, I said to them, disavowing them. My daughter took up the hands in her own. Why are these not your hands? She asked. These are weathered. They have veins popping out. The knuckles bump into one another. There's all this discoloration and spots, I complained. They have seen a life, Mom. Your hands have seen a life and they've felt a lot and they've cared for a lot. These are your hands. I sat with that for a while, staring at my hands. Tom could just turn on the light for me if I couldn't. He did love to care for me. He used to insist on filling the carafe at night for me, so I would wake up with a fresh glass of water. The carafe sat dry now, chalky with the water's sediments. A glass of water can really rinse away the sleep from one's mind. Tom was good to me. I should fill it. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding that contact. The globe's blue light shut off with a dim hum. Now if she could just get me a glass of water, I muttered, sitting up. The quilt my mother made as a marriage gift to Tom and I falls off my chest, fully exposing me. I am naked. I need to pee. Where did my nightgown go? I never sleep nude. It was promiscuous. Well, maybe I could be known to sleep without underwear, let it breathe and all that, but never fully nude. I look on the floor for my slippers. They always sit next to the nightstand. I find only my pink and white striped nightgown. So there it is. In the dim light from the lamp, the white cotton looks gray, as if soaked in water. A tap from my unslippered foot confirms this, a squelching sound that causes water to gush from the fabric, pooling and then reabsorbing like a sponge when I release the pressure. All right, so now we have about 5 minutes for some questions.
Thank you for that reading.
And if you're in my GCal, I listed some questions you could ask. Happy?
I remember one.
Yes.
How did you research dementia?
Yes, that's a great question. So it was how did I research dementia? So I watched a lot of video interviews with people with the early stages of dementia who could still answer what it felt like. And they said things like forgetting words even when they were right there, as if they were like locked or behind a wall that they couldn't access. They had challenges with familiar tasks, lose or forget where they put things. They see things, have delusions. And so I incorporated these experiences that they talked about throughout my story, as well as combining it with my personal experience with my customer with dementia. So thank you for that question. Yes, Larry?
So you know I'm gonna ask the why question. So what about this, what about dementia drew you to write this story? I mean, why this topic? What
Yeah.
about that interests you?
So I was inspired by the customer, right?
Mhm.
But also my piece deals with a deeper question of identity. And my character thinks that she's still married to Tom. She spends the majority of the piece looking for him, and doesn't know that she left Tom for her best friend Nita, and is now married to Nita. So I was inspired by this question of how much of your identity is tied to your memory, and if I one day get dementia or a memory illness, will that alter who I am, like, fundamentally as a person? And so this piece, I tried to explore that. I still don't have an answer, and honestly, it ends in an unsettling way. That might not be that good of an answer of, like, yes, it does alter you. Yeah, thank you. Cassidy?
I know you mentioned that like real life inspires you, but are there specific writers or artists that inspire your work?
Yeah, thank you. So my most inspirational artists are not fiction writers. I love reading poetry by Ada Limon, Sasha Lapointe, and Tommy Pico. And these poets encourage a lyrical element and help me zoom in on details. So like zooming in on stepping on the wet nightgown. And then I'm also really inspired by theological writers like Yvonne Gabara, Karen Baker Fletcher, and Marie Lynn Tonstad. And these theologians remind me of what's at stake with what we're talking about and what we're writing, and how to turn something upside down, a preconceived notion. So yeah, thank you, Cassidy. All right, I probably I have time for a few more questions. Yes?
So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the decision to use first person. It's a kind of a
Yes.
bold move to try and get inside of the head of someone who
Yes.
is struggling with understanding who they are.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. So when I wrote this piece a few years ago, it was in third person and past tense. So it said, Ardella did this, and there was a layer of separation. But then throughout our capstone, we've been reading some really great writers along with our revisions. And halfway through our revision process, I was like, this isn't working. And this was specifically after reading In the Cemetery where Al Holson is buried by Amy Hempel. And that piece deals with sickness and the death of a friend, and it's in first person and present tense, and that allows it to move in and out of memory really easily. So after reading that in class, I went to my workshop and I was like, guys, I'm going to resubmit what I wrote today, and we can talk about it Wednesday, because I feel really inspired to try it again with first person and present tense. And my group really liked it and gave me some really good feedback on it. And so yeah, that's how it became first person. But there is that, like, I feel more comfortable in third person. There's that layer of separation that I enjoy. So it was like out of my comfort zone and like a bit of a risk to inhabit the character in the I perspective. Yeah, thank you for that question. Eden?
To second, well, with a comment, I thought that the choice to use first person was really wonderful, as it brought, I felt really completely consumed by the story and very much in her perspective. And like, I love how you trailed through different things and memories that she was thinking about, and then it would come back to the present, like when Alexa then asked or said, I'm having trouble finding that contact after the detour. Like, I thought that was really, really amazing. But my question is, what role does Nita play, and like where is she? Like, does she live in the house?
No, so Nita is absent the whole time, all 20 pages, because it is too hard for her. And I had asked my classmates, like, is it more tragic that, like, Nita dies and we don't remember it, or that Nita has left because taking care of your wife who thinks that she's still married to her ex-husband, like, which one is more tragic? And everyone said that Nita left and is no longer, like, with Ardella. But going to your point on the moving to past tense for the memory tangents, I do have some spots later on where the memory tangents kind of meld with the present tense. So there's a memory of her remembering that she was pregnant, but then feeling pregnant now, and then that becomes present tense. So I did get to play with it in a really fun way. Yeah, all right. Thank you all so much.